Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Very Reasonable Pilots podcast. I'm your host, Charles. Along with me, as always, my co-host, producer, co-pilot, gunner, navigator, orator, and podcasting associate, Jacob Gloth. How you doing today, Jacob?
I am swell, Charles. Excited. Another episode of the podcast, 267, I believe. You've got a new title.
Hell yeah.
I'm excited.
I do.
I think it's going to be the most... What is it going to be? The most, not exciting, not thrilling, the most...
Nope.
Intriguing episode that is in the 260s. It's a low bar.
There is
a low bar.
intrigue. It's kind of a low bar, I'll be honest with you. There is intrigue. There is excitement. But this is a drama.
Okay.
Now, I'll be honest with you, Jake. I haven't gotten that many ideas for episodes written down. And I am
Charlie,
slightly
you don't need to reveal
fearful
this.
that this...
It would
Yes,
have been
I do.
fine.
I am slightly fearful that this would have worked better as a film, but the idea I have, the title, by the way, I should have said that first, Those That Know Not. Now, I joked when I was given this title initially that I was going to do a pirate show, and I didn't do a pirate show, right?
Okay, good.
My first idea, and I think you would have liked this idea, but I just couldn't figure out a way to really get into it, was going to be, it was like a Alcoholics Anonymous, but for the victims of serial killers, like their families of victim of serial killers, right? So the whole premise was going to be that there's this group of people and they all kind of come together and become like a sort of found family over the shared trauma of having a loved one killed by a serial killer.
Yeah.
And it was going to be set in the splatterpunk universe because that's the serial killer universe. I didn't go with that, but I did decide to keep the central idea of a small group of people that become closer and there's violence and intrigue and interest, right, between all of them. So, after an unknown world-ending event, a group of survivors hole up in a high school and begin to come to terms with their new living situations as well as their new roommates, right? So that's the idea. We have a high school, we've got sort of the Mist style, we can't really go outside, we don't really know why, but we know it's dangerous as shit out there, right? And we have this group of very different people, and they all kind of have to learn to live with each other, and there's romance, and there's intrigue, and there's secrets, and there's violence, you know, there's all sorts of fun stuff that's going on. But really, the star of the show, when it comes to this show, is the characters. And so I'm just going to run through them very, very quickly. Okay, not very quickly.
Very slowly. Incredibly slowly.
Ronald Humphreys. No, I'm not going to go with that slowly. Ronald Humphreys is a large, burly, traditionally masculine man who thinks of himself as the leader of the group, but is oftentimes irresponsible and stupid. Right? Now, this Ronald he's a buff, big dude. He's got a mustache. He kind of like, imagine Ron Swanson, but if Ron Swanson wasn't actually a good person. Like, he's this kind of jock douchebag who never really got out of the high school mindset of being the quarterback, of being the guy who saves the day. He never really moved past that vision of himself, you know?
Yeah.
And so now he's sort of a burnout, he's sort of a loser, but this end of the world thing has given him a second chance to really take control of that identity as the winner, as the leader, you know?
Yeah.
And so he always envisions himself as being the top dog, as being the guy in charge, the one that everyone listens to and goes to for help, right? But the problem is that he's an idiot and he's not very nice. He doesn't really think about other people, and he bullies one of our other characters pretty incessantly, to the point where it stops being kind of like a fun sort of haha, like we're ribbing each other, and starts just being like harassment and like such psychological like distress, you know? That character that he really fucks with is Hugh Lines. Now, Hugh Lines is a soft-spoken, loving man with very little survival instinct, but a love for romantic poetry and literature, right? He's kind of the diametric opposite of Ronald Humphreys. He's the Jake and Charlie of this group. He's a gentleman. Exactly. He's a gentleman. He doesn't like violence. He's not really interested in like hurting anyone or being in charge of anything. He just likes to read and think and write and like ponder, you know? And he's very sweet and very thoughtful, you know, again, like the opposite of Ronald, right? And he is oftentimes like finds himself in conflict with Ronald against his own wishes. He doesn't want to start anything, but Ronald looks at him and sees all of the nerds in high school that went on to become successful. And Ronald stayed there. He never moved on from this town. Now, I should say that the high school is in this small town, and that's why they're all in this together. It's not like a huge city where there would be hundreds of people piling into this high school. It is a college town. There's not many people there. It's the Christmas break. There's very few people in the town to begin with, and then this event happens. And these are the 5 people that made it to the high school, and they're just kind of figuring out how to live together, right? And so Hugh is, again, like he's a gentle, soft boy. If he was played by anyone, he'd be played by, what's his name? Who did we cast last week as the, like, bumbling idiot bookstore owner?
Oh, I used Hugh Grant.
Crime Wave. Yeah, if he were played by an actor, it would be Hugh Grant in his like 20s, you know? And our third and final male character is Marcus
you could use
Kramer,
current Jacob
who
Elordi.
is a
I was trying to think of who Hugh Grant in his 20s could be.
Jacob Elordi could also work.
He could do it, maybe. I don't think he's English. You probably need somebody that's English. I don't know who the tall, handsome English man currently is in Hollywood.
Fair enough. So. It's Ed Sheeran. It's not Ed Sheeran.
Unfortunately, it's not Tom Holland. He's not the tallest of individuals, but
he's very much not a tall individual. Also, every movie he's in that doesn't have the word Spider-Man in it flops horribly, which I think is very funny. Because he seems like a nice guy, and he seems like he's talented.
Well, he's about to be in the Odyssey with Christopher Nolan, so I'm assuming this one's not going to flop horribly.
Oh, probably. It would be funny, though, if it did.
Yeah,
if that was the first Chris Nolan movie to ever lose money, Tom Holland would never work again outside of a Spider-Man costume. He would never work again. But because everyone else in that movie is like a super well-known actor. But besides that, Marcus Kramer is a recovering drug addict and former biker gang member who is trying to better himself through prayer and meditation. So he's this big, burly dude. He's kind of the only person in the seemingly in the group that could present any sort of a physical threat to Ronald. Right? But he is somebody who is trying to embrace like pacifism and sort of a cleaner mental and physical way of being, because he spent the first like 30-something years of his life being just kind of a degenerate asshole, right? And in prison, he, started to find like salvation through, I was thinking Buddhism, but I also don't know very much about Buddhism. But like the Eightfold Path, right? Yeah. He's trying to like find enlightenment and become better within himself. And so the problem with that is that in the arguments, he generally speaking does not like interact. He doesn't pick a side because he is trying to, just be one with himself, And so that makes it 4 people who are voting, which always brings it to a tie. And so there's always a kind of a reason for conflict, because Kramer, he's not a pushover. If push comes to shove, he will like step up and do what needs done. But generally speaking, if we're arguing about, well, who should be in charge and who should, run, who should be in charge of what food goes out and stuff like that, Kramer is oftentimes not getting involved in that.
Okay.
Our next character is Selena Rain, an older woman, and when I say older, I mean she's in like her mid-30s. The oldest person is Kramer, and he's in like his early 40s. Then you have Rain, who is in her mid-30s, and then Lines is in like his, I would say mid to late 20s, and Ronald is in his mid-30s as well, right? Selena Rain, who is an older woman, who has spent her life, doing some, let's say, not so great things for the U.S. military. She is a veteran. She is, come to this small town to take care of her sick mother. And obviously the apocalypse happened, and so she's stuck in here. She's very stoic and quiet and reserved. She also seems to have a little bit more going on than she really is allowing anyone to know. But there is something going on here, and she's always kind of playing a sort of Machiavellian game with the people around her. It seems as if she is the smartest person in the room, no matter what room she's in, And our last character is Linda Reynolds, who is a college student. She's, in her, early 20s. She's a college student who's studying botany and has recently come out of the closet to her parents and is in the process of trying to overcome her anxiety, And so she is somebody she's got a lot bottled up, and she's got a lot going on internally and externally, and then all of the apocalypse stuff happens, and that just reinforces her like sort of negative ideas about the world and about her anxiety and her place in the world. And so she is kind of coming into her own as a person, realizing she's not a kid anymore. She's an adult. She's a woman. She's in charge of her own destiny and her place in the world. It's not anyone else's decision or responsibility, Yeah.
Yeah.
So those are our 5 main characters. We don't really have anyone else in the show. It's kind of just our principal cast.
Interesting. Okay. So they don't come across other survivors or anybody?
There may be one other person that I have in mind that will arrive, but it is tied directly to Miss Selena Rain and her place in the story, right? But I don't really have a beginning, middle, and end established in my mind, because I don't really think that this show suits very well for an ending. I hate it when apocalypse shows and apocalypse movies end with, and then they saved the world, and then the world came back together and it was fine. I kind of always think that apocalypse shows and movies, they should end with our cast having learned a lesson, but still having to face down the dangers of the new world in their face,
Yeah.
Obviously, The Mist, if you haven't seen the movie The Mist, or read the book, I don't know if the book ends the same way, but the movie The Mist has an absolute banger ending, which works perfectly with the idea of, and then the world was saved. But anything else, I'm kind of like, like you shouldn't save the world. It's an apocalypse. It should be the end of the world.
Unless
not the end of the world for
Avengers
a week and a half, and then it was
something,
fine. Yeah.
Gotta have...
Exactly, but the Avengers don't show up.
Jim and Bob aren't saving the world.
Exactly. Like...
Your football guy, he's not gonna suddenly pull a little crank and boom, everything's fine.
Yeah.
And it was all a dream.
Episode 1.
It's all a dream.
It was all a dream.
His,
it was all a story.
The stressors of his life.
Written by Hugh Lines. Yeah, it was like, no, it's the end of the world. We're fucked. So, episode 1, pilot episode, titled Food. That's just the title of it. The gang, after a very brief and hectic montage of the quote-unquote incident, right? And so we'll have flashes of them like running into the high school and like sirens going off and lightning strikes and like we hear a snarl or something. We see we hear people coughing and screaming and scratching at each other, right? And then we cut to our 5 main characters, and they're all sitting around this battery-powered lantern in the gymnasium of this, like, Midwestern high school, right? And they're all eating cold school lunches because it's the only thing they have to eat. And they're eating it, and they're fucking miserable, and they're all sad and cold and tired because there's no electricity, there's no heating, they've got blankets over them, but it is still, it's not winter, it's probably like coming out of winter just into spring, but it's still cold and it's still miserable, and they're obviously all super depressed. When Ronald, right, starts talking about the fact that they need food. Like, they need more food. This isn't gonna last us for all that long. We need to start rationing. And then that's when Kramer and Ronald start to kind of get into this argument about Ronald wants to ration the food really strictly, and Kramer's kind of like, we're going to be rescued. Like, this isn't the end. There is other stuff going on. There's people out there that'll help us. We are going to be saved, so we don't need to, like, ration ourselves to 1 slice of bread and, like, 3 beans a day. We can do this.
Yeah.
And so they get into this argument, and Kramer is kind of like, he's, you know, falling back into his more seedy side when he's, like, getting into Humphrey's face. But after a second, they all calm down when Rain puts her hand up, right? She yells, she maybe drops a book on the floor, like makes a really loud noise, tells these 2 guys to stop pissing testosterone at each other and look at this intellectually. All right, either way, we need to save food. Like, even if people are going to come and save us within the next week, month, 2 months, year, whatever it is, we still should save food. It's a good idea to save food. And so they start rationing, they figure out how much food approximately everybody needs, and so they start rationing, and they determine that, and Humphrey's, like, he kind of forces his way into being the person that will ration the food. It was his idea. He, you know, has the best idea of nutrition. I mean, and he starts bragging about his protein intake and all this shit, you know, and eventually everyone just kind of says, yeah, you can fucking ration the food. It's, yes, just shut up. Stop talking about your protein. You can ration the food. And so after a few days of going through this rationing, everybody's kind of hungry. Everybody's getting that sort of like
cranky,
angry anxiety that you get when you've been hungry for a few days, you know? Not hungry enough to where it hurts or it's like really uncomfortable, just the hunger that kind of annoys you, right? And so everybody's on edge a little bit. People are snapping at each other. There's a little bit more... Everybody's a little bit more quick to anger and that sort of thing. And one day, Hugh, like, he goes just into the cafeteria because he forgot something there. Maybe that's where he likes to read because he gets the best sunlight at this certain part of the day when he sees Ronald in the back just scarfing food. Right? Mm-hmm. He's been stealing the rationed food. And at first, you know, he looks up and Hugh, like, sees him. And then Ronald, like, he's got food dripping out of his mouth, and Hugh, like, starts to run away, and Ronald chases after him to try and catch him. And just as, you know, Ronald's about to get him, Hugh bursts through the doors of the gymnasium and tells everyone, like, Ronald's been stealing food. He's been rationing all of our food, and he's been eating everything he wants to himself. Like, what the fuck? And that's when there's this big screaming match that starts. Kramer starts to get up and starts to kind of size up Humphreys, and Humphreys starts to talk about, well, I'm the biggest, I'm the strongest, I need the most protein, I need the most sustenance calories because blah, 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 blah. And after all this, they start to get into a bit more of a physical altercation that makes its way into the cafeteria where they see how much food Ronald's been eating, and Lines and Kramer start to really actually get into a fight with Humphreys, and Humphreys throws Lines against the food containers and they all splash onto the ground, and food spills everywhere, and it's like all of this rationing has been for naught because all this food is just gone to waste. It's on the ground, like it's, you know, you can't eat it. And that's when what's her name? Sorry, one sec. I don't have her name Reynolds. That's when Reynolds looks down at the food that's spilled everywhere, and she sees just these green beans. These little, like, cut-up green beans that you get when, you're a kid. And she has a moment where she remembers. And she's like, I went to high school here. I remember, and she runs off. And she runs to the science, how science teachers will all have a room where all their desks are together, right?
Yeah.
And she runs there. And she's like, I remember Biology 101. We did a project, right, in my freshman year, and we had to grow potatoes. That was the project. And so she rifles through all of the science teachers' desks until she finds this tiny little packet of seeds, right? And she looks up and she holds them up as if it were like the Eucharist. She just holds it up, and like sunlight goes through it, and they're all kind of like, there's so much joy in their eyes. There's a sparkle. And that's when they all start working together again to try and grow these potatoes so that they have something to eat, that isn't this something that they can continually eat. And after a few weeks of growing potatoes and rationing the food, they all like look at the first plant as it grows, and they all just kind of smile and look at each other and realize, like, we're in this together. There's not going to be a rescue team, or if there is, it won't be for a while. Like, we have to do this together. And so they all kind of work together to make this food, And that's the end of episode 1. A nice little contained story about food. Our second episode is Leadership. It's the title of the episode, right? And after the human needs are met, that has opened the door to more of a social conflict. And so they're warmer now because spring has sprung. They've eaten, they're full, right? And that's when Ronald starts to talk about leadership, right? And he starts to talk about how, they need a strong leader, somebody powerful, somebody intelligent and strong to lead them. And he, obviously suggests himself,
Oh.
And Selena Rain joins him and says, I think Ronald should be in charge,
What the hell, Selena?
And everyone's kind of taken aback that Selena would say that, And so there's this kind of like a conflict where the three others start kind of like getting on at him, and then Kramer like breathes in through his nose and out through his mouth, and he goes and he leaves the room. And everybody's kind of like, well, I guess Kramer's not voting. Well, I'll give you guys, the two of you, Lines and Reynolds, the rest of the day to figure it out. If you're going to be okay with me being in charge, or if you're gonna have to leave, right? And so that's when Reynolds and Lines, they start to talk, and Lines is kind of like, he's sheepish, but he's got like ideas about leadership and about how things should be done and about the equality of it. And Reynolds is kind of like, her like meek, sheepish demeanor is like she's inspired by him, almost like enthusiastic about him, and she's like, you should lead, you should be in charge. And that's when he starts to get convinced of it himself, and he talks to Kramer, and Kramer gives him some like sort of Jedi nonsense, right? Like advice that's useless
Only
advice,
a Sith
right?
deals
So
with
he's
absolutes.
Exactly, like just like goddamn nonsense. And he's like, I'm gonna do it. I'm going to be in charge. I'm gonna go in there. I'm gonna storm in there, and I'm gonna tell Ronald that I'm gonna be in charge of this place. I'm gonna lead these people. I'm gonna make sure we're safe, right? And Kramer's in the gymnasium. Ronald and Selena are standing there, right? And Reynolds is sitting there, and she's kind of looking expectant and excited, right? Because Lines is he's gonna come in here and be assertive and be strong and tell him what's what. And Hugh Lines walks in, and he looks confident, and as he walks closer and closer to the group, his silhouette almost seems to shrink, and his confidence pitters out into just a mild spark, and then finally sizzles away. And he sits down and he says, "Okay, Ronald, you're in charge." And that's Ronald is like, he's so pleased with himself and all this stuff. And then everybody retires. Ronald, happy with himself, he retires to his room and he's like, oh man, now that I'm in charge, Selena is gonna be so into me. He's like, it's gonna be great for me. And then we cut to Selena's room and we see her polishing a handgun.
Oh shit.
End of episode 2, right? And those are the episodes I have written, but I do know where it's gonna go from there. We're gonna have another episode of sort of a conflict that happens. Maybe there's a sort of, I think they're trying to get water, right? Because right before the end of the world, that was when the school got its big delivery of those, those water tanks that you get for
a bunch of those.
you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, they have a bunch of those, and so they have clean water. And now they're, starting to run low, and they're starting to realize that this is going to be a long-term thing.
Yeah. And
so they have to figure out a way of getting water. And Hugh, after, he spends his entire time in the library, I'm imagining each of the characters is setting up their room or area in the place in the school that most represents them, Mm-hmm. And so Hugh will be in the library. Reynolds will be in the science lab. Ronald will be in the gym, right? That sort of thing. I haven't figured out where Selena or them or Kramer
Selena's
is in
the principal's
but
office.
they're in the places. Exactly.
Kramer's in the janitor's closet.
Yeah, Kramer is in the basement. But Hugh, is able, while he's in the library, finds a book about water purification, is able to come up with a means by which they can capture rainwater and turn it into potable drinking water that they're able to use, right?
Yeah.
And
maybe
that's
via
the end of
the
it is
school's
they're
boiler for heating. They can set up a system where they can purify the water.
Exactly. And then here's where we're gonna kind of do a little bit more world building. Episode begins. Selena Rain is crawling through a duct like John McClane, and we see her, and she's in full ski mask, black outfit, right? And she's crawling through a duct, and she looks down and she sees all these scientists in lab coats speaking Spanish, right? And you're like, what the fuck? And we see her, and the scientists leave the room, and she descends from the duct and steals a thumb drive from the computer that the scientists were both looking over. She puts it in her pocket, and then she climbs back up and escapes through the ducts. And we see her board a plane, right, where her handler is sitting on the plane waiting for her, and she slides the thumb drive over to him, her handler, and he congratulates her and says, "The United States of America thanks you for your service," right?
Shit,
and then she lands. That's right. Selena Rain is actually a CIA operative who has been working internationally for the last 20 years. They got her right out of school. Or let's say 10 years. They got her right out of school. And she is the person, and she is partially responsible for the end of the world, because the information that was on that thumb drive was actually a virus, because the Bolivian government, that's right, she was in Bolivia, that's why they were speaking Spanish, knew that they were being watched by the CIA, and so they did a honeypot basically, where they were like, you think that this is a thumb drive full of valuable information, but the second it goes into a CIA computer, it'll upload this virus without anyone knowing that will cripple the U.S. Electrical grid and basically just turn off all of the electricity in the country, And unintended side effects of that are that the entire world kind of falls, not as much as the U.S., but the entire world is kind of crippled by this, because the U.S. is, responsible for a lot of, data, and, cell phones and shit.
So you're not gonna do, the
not
nukes
making
shot
cell
fire or
phones.
something?
I wasn't gonna do nukes just because nukes seem a little bit everybody does nukes. I mean, can do nukes, but it's like, whatever. But we find all of this out because Selena has been spending her time in the AV room of this school.
Oh.
And she is able to rig up a hand-cranked radio that she hasn't told any of the other survivors about. And with that radio, she has been attempting to contact her CIA handler, right? And after, weeks and weeks of her trying and failing to do this, she finally gives up. But then, a dark and stormy night, they hear a knock on the door. And as Ronald goes up to open the door, this man bursts in, right? And he is exhausted and tired and weathered, and he collapses to the ground, and Selena is taken aback because it is her handler. It's the guy that she saw. That it's him. He came for her, right? And so it's sort of this thing where it's like she doesn't want her new friends to know that she has been lying to them basically the entire time. And so it's kind of this like cat and mouse game where her handler is able to like use her, weakness and use her, blackmail her into like doing things that he wants and like giving her his food, like, because he's not representing the CIA by any means. She contacted him, not the CIA, and he was just as fucked as she was. Like, he was also in the apocalypse when he got the contact. And so he is like, this is my new thing. I am going to run this. This is going to be my place. I'm going to run these people. I'm going to be in charge. And so that's kind of the conflict that they'll be focusing on that episode. And at the end of the episode, that's when Selena shoots her handler in the face. And everyone is revealed that she has a gun. And then she turns the gun on Ronald and says, I'm in charge now. Like, you were a useful idiot, but now everyone knows that I'm, in charge. And so, like, we all have to calm down, and now I'm the one who's calling the shots from here, big boy, right? And so that's kind of the big twist reveal of the show, is that Selena wasn't just like kind of a veteran. She was a CIA operative who inadvertently caused the end of the world, And the show will end with her kind of taking her anxiety and her paranoia kind of taking over. And that's when Kramer and Hugh and Reynolds and Humphreys all have to work together to get the gun away from her. And at first, like, Humphreys picks it up and he looks at it like, this is my like key to staying in charge and my key to survival. And then he looks at these people that he's come to view as his new family, and he throws the gun outside, right? He like throws it into a running river and it's gone. And they all kind of come together and realize that in this new world, the only thing that they can really rely on is the friendship and the bond that they've built over these last months together, Yeah. That's the show. Those that know not.
Those that know not.
Not my... those that know not.
That was very interesting. So it's all going to be concentrated in this school the whole time, and it's just about the development of their relationships and realizing that they need it. Like, in the end, the most important thing is like sticking together as opposed to I thought maybe that
individual glory,
Ronald or something, or there'd be some shenanigans with murder and possibly leaving the school. But I like how it's grounded in the school, and they kind of just have to stay and work together, and it's not like sitcom-y, but kind of like focused drama on like the interior and the relationships.
That was what I was going for. I thought that would be an interesting place to take it.
Yeah, I liked it. It's good.
But yeah, thank you, Jacob. Thank you, everyone, for listening to the Very Reasonable Pilots podcast. I've been your host, Charles. Along with me, as always, been my co-host, editor, producer, co-pilot, gunner, navigator, orator, and podcasting associate, Jacob Gloff. If you like what you heard here and you want to hear more, please give us a like, a follow, subscribe, tell your friends, tell your family, tell your dog, tell your cat, and remember, we will be here next week with a brand new televisual series titled The Hardest Road Oft Traveled.
Ooh.
That's the show title. Long title.
I'm very excited for this one. I've got an interesting story planned out. I got a couple pieces I want to change up a little bit, but I think it's coming together pretty nicely. It'll be interesting. Should be fun.
Good.
Should
All right.
be fun.
Well,
Charlie, actually,
I'm
right now,
excited.
I want you to take a guess. What do you think it's going to be about? Not what you think,
I think
what
it's going
your
to-
idea was, but what do you think I have come up with? And then the listeners will find out next time.
I think it'll be a road trip, but I think it'll be about going to the moon.
A road trip to the moon. That's Charlie's guess. Road trip to the moon. All right.
Yeah.
We'll tune in next week on Monday, and you will
Thank
find out
you.
if it's a road trip to the moon
Bye-bye.
or something else.
Hopefully it's a road trip to the moon.